Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Sunday service at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. My name is Don West Jr. and I'll be serving as your worship associate this morning. We're glad you've joined us for worship at the UUFLB, and I'm looking forward to sharing some thoughts with you a bit, exploring acute and accurate thinking, truth in our spirituality. This morning in our gathering music, we listened to the song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," and this song was originally recorded by Billy Joel in 1989. However, the version that we just listened to was not by Billy Joel, but was a new and updated version by the Fall Out Boys. And it's interesting because I choose the music and I send the music out in emails, and so several people get to see it beforehand. And this is the first time ever in the history of me doing this particular exercise that I've had people advocate for changing the version of the music that I chose. And so several people said, including Dara, who none of you got to see it, but Dara was rocking out to the song during the gathering music back there. They asked us to change it to the version by the Fall Out Boys. The Fall Out Boys are an American band from Wilmette, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, and their band was formed in 2001. So before Dara got to me this morning and put in her request for the Fall Out Boys, I want to thank Cindy Williams, because until just last night I had no idea that this version exists, and she sent me a text and said, "Hey, check this out." So aside from including recent events, the update from the Fall Out Boys, which I'll share, it goes from 1989 when Billy Joel's version was done, and his version starts with Harry Truman and goes from Harry Truman up to 1989. Another difference that I learned in trying to understand a little bit about the version was Billy Joel's original version, everything that he mentioned was in chronological order. So he not only curated the events, but he made them rhyme and sound musical in chronological order. And the Fall Out Boys, their order goes back and forth between 1989 and 2003, and there was also one criticism that I thought was very interesting, that several of the words, they changed the pronunciation of the word from its normal pronunciation to make it more fitting for where it fell into the verse so that it would flow better. So there was some critique on the fact that they had to squeeze things in and they were jumping around the years. But the fire has always been burning, and the update shows that even in the last 3 decades, there's just as many trivial and significant events that have occurred. And what I'm postulating is as we go forward over the next 3 decades, the exact same thing shall happen. The fire will keep on burning. So how will I and how will you be weaved into the fabric of that fire? How will we impact the fire? Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith. If you've joined us on Zoom this morning, I invite you to light a chalice in your home as I light the chalice here in the sanctuary. Excuse me. We ignite our chalice today filled with the spirit of thanksgiving, thankful for a renovated spiritual sanctuary for our souls to gather in respite, thankful for the gathering again of each of us here today, connecting and combining to create a unique frequency, a special imprint in this moment in time. We ignite this chalice in a spirit of gratitude and thankfulness for one another, for our relationships, for all we have. We are the church of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hand. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation with a commitment to work together to actively dismantle systemic racism and oppression in all of its forms. Unitarian Universalists subscribe to no single religious creed, but have gathered a set of principles that guide us as we build a religious community together. The 7 principles that Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote on the screen and on the back of your order of service. And if you haven't already picked one up, but I think everyone has one, there's some more there on the back table. The land on which we join together in worship is the ancestral territory of the Hashiman and Tonga tribes. We offer our gratitude to the First Nations for their care of the earth and for their teachings, and with humility, we commit to learning and working on behalf of justice. Today, we further acknowledge the lessons taught at the first Thanksgiving, lessons of how to treat a stranger on your shores. It was a life-saving lesson for the strangers back in Plymouth in 1621. This week is Thanksgiving in the United States. We here at the UUFLB give thanks and our reverent appreciation for all the First Nations, especially those lost, those still with us, and articulate our commitment to becoming more knowledgeable, engaged neighbors and allies to the First Nations. And an early and happy Thanksgiving to everybody here and on Zoom. Whoever you are, whomever you love, no matter your age or gender, your ancestral or ethnic background, and whatever sincere questions that bring you today, whatever has brought you here this morning, we welcome you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and ethical beings. A community which supports each of us as we work to make a difference in the world. Throughout the service this morning, if you're here with us in the building, I invite you to come forward and light a candle here in the sanctuary in recognition of whatever you might be carrying in your heart, a joy or sorrow, at any point during the worship today. I don't see any guests. I don't think we have any on Zoom from my peep earlier. So we'll skip the invitation to guests, and I will invite those present to say hello and greet one another. Invite everybody on Zoom to say hello, and if you will, Carol, play us a little ditty while we do that. Good morning.
Be tap dancing. Down on.
Thank you.
Their side because you have already allowed sound here. There's something wrong with their system.
Is that better? It's magic. Hello, everyone on Zoom. I apologize that the mic wasn't on. Real quickly from the top, 1126, Peter Dobson. He's going to give us a musical and philosophical rendering. 12:03, Reverend Celia Young is with us doing part 4 of her 4-part series on spirituality and aging. On 12:10, we have Reverend Rika. Reverend Rika's joining us after a time away. Where has she been? She's been in Germany. I listened to all of these wonderful details that Pam shared last week in her description of what Reverend Rika has been doing, and I remembered none of them. I apologize, you guys. Then on 12:17, I will be back with you again in person, live and in living color. And then we have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful service planned for the morning. I repeat, the morning of 12/24, which is Christmas Eve. And I do believe there is a Christmas evening service somewhere else within the general cluster. Do we know where that is? I think I heard somebody say that 3 times softly in the back before I asked where it was. So at Tapestry, there will be a Christmas Eve service for those interested in a service for Christmas Eve. So that is our slate of services coming up. I am not aware of any announcements from the podium. Are there any announcements from the body that anybody would like to share with the people this morning? I see none. Going once, going twice. Oakley, you always have the privilege to share an announcement if you have anything.
Just Zoom and Zoom, and then the board meeting will be the second Monday of December.
Just to re-articulate that, invitation, everybody, tomorrow, Zoom at noon, with Paul and Candy as our host. And then the board meeting will be the second Monday of December, so everybody is always invited to participate and help us handle the business. And as you know, there's always more opportunities to work together and more to be done. So if you're looking to become more involved, if you want to do more, you know who I'm talking to. We invite you to do just that. Our centering thought today is from George Orwell. Eric Arthur Blair is George Orwell's given name. I did not know that he wrote under a pen name. Eric Arthur Blair. He's an English novelist, essayist, journalist, and critic, perhaps best known for his novel, 1984. I wanted to put like a bunch of quotes. I felt like you, Rachel, where I have 6, 7 quotes, and then I have to pare it down. I'm like, I can't pare it down, so here you go. But I didn't do that. I forced myself to give you guys just this one quote from George Orwell. So let's read it all together, since it's only a few of us. Let's do that. Let's read it together now. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
Wow.
Our opening hymn is going to be number 1051 this morning. We are. So please stand as you're comfortable in body, mind, or spirit, and join Carol Cole in singing number 1051. After our opening hymn, I'm going to ask you to remain standing for our unison affirmation. The words for our opening hymn will be on the screen. Carol.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great fishes. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom
Remind ourselves why we gather together as a community. I invite you to read these words if and when it feels right for you. If you've joined us by Zoom, I also invite you to unmute yourselves and join your voices as we read it together. Love is the
is the
spirit
spirit of this fellowship, and
and
service is its law. This
This
is
is
our great covenant, to dwell together in peace.
help one another.
You seek the
Seek
truth
the truth and love
of
one another.
We've come to the time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives over the past week. The joys that we share are amplified so that they extend beyond ourselves into community. And in sharing our sorrows, we can provide for each other the support and care that are vital for all of us. During this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we are supporting. It is as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. In this self-governing and self-sustaining community, we recognize that it is our responsibility to do both well. Our fellowship depends on the love and generous contributions from our members. We are empowered by the innumerous gifts of those who join in covenant with us: time, compassion, humor, and financial contribution. And all of our gifts, generously given, are needed for this fellowship and its continued work in the world. During this time of offering, we're going to pass a basket around the fellowship. Carol's going to play some music for us, and the information on the screen provides 2 additional ways you can give electronically, plus an address where you can send us something in the mail. So, take it away, Carol. Sincere gratitude. Feel free to stand if you're comfortable. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Please be seated. Now I invite you to come into a time of prayer or meditation. You may want to close your eyes and place your feet on the ground. Place your hands in your lap or find a comfortable position. Relax all of the muscles in your face and your neck. Start to take some deep breaths in and deep breaths out. As we breathe together, we become more united as one. All together in and out. Breathe in and out. As we exhale, let's exhale hope. Hope for the future, hope for healing, hope for reconciliation. In, out. Out. Let's just keep breathing together in and out for a few moments of silence. Carol will play us out, and then we'll do our sermon. So the last time we were together in person, we talked about the 8th principle, which is focused on decentralizing, on dismantling the impacts of systemic racism in our spiritual journeys. And today, in part, we're going to be challenged to shift our perspectives in a way that makes our historical compasses more accurate. My belief is that through our efforts to develop more accurate perspectives, we may be able to create a full frontal assault on some of the unseen elements that amount to our most fundamental beliefs. But first, I want to do a little bit of show and tell and how we got to where we are today, because as you know, I did an 8-part series plus a couple of things in between, including the book series over the summer, and the 8-part series was done, and so coming into November, it was like a blank slate, and what are we going to talk about? And this is my show and tell, a little bit about how we got here, and for those who've been to Zoom at Noon, I've mentioned it several times, we've got a new feature in Vegas, and it's the largest architectural dome, freestanding dome in the world. And it's called the Madison Square Garden Sphere. And the sphere is both on the inside and outside completely covered in screens. And so it's an entertainment venue, it's a concert venue primarily, but it's also the largest freestanding dome in the world. So it's kind of one of the coolest architectural feats to be produced in the last decade. So if we can show this first video just shows you a little bit of what the sphere looks like. And as I told you, it has screens on the outside. And so you see right now, well, it's gonna come back, I promise. And again, this is just a little bit of show and tell on how we got here. It's going to be a really long tangential story of show and tell, but it'll make sense maybe one day. So this is the sphere. It's U2 is the first residency. They're the first performer to perform at the sphere. Driving in, I captured this video going in. I'm not a big U2 fan. I wasn't really sure what those words at the top were. I think it's Ashung Baby. That's actually the name of one of their albums. If I was a U2 fan, I wouldn't have had a question as to what those words were up at the top. But that's the exterior of the sphere. And then a cool factoid I'll share with you guys that also is, I told you, a tangential thing. The company that built that structure is called W&W Steel Erectors. It's based in Las Vegas. It's actually based in Oklahoma City, but they have an office in Las Vegas. And that's where my girlfriend Lindsay works. She works at W&W Steel Erectors. And because she works there, and because they built this structure, and it's one of the coolest architectural structures, they've invested in having a box at the structure. And so we got to go and sit in the box during one of the shows for the U2 concert and got to take in one of the largest, coolest bands out there right now, and the coolest structure in the world as of 2023. And I have another video that shows just a small clip of the U2 concert inside, so you can see just a little bit of the U2 show, but more some of the capacity of what the screens are and what they did with the screens inside during their concert. Set up well because I didn't tell you the part that was important. So as you can see, it was like we were sitting outside and looking at the Las Vegas Strip. And what they did was, before we got to that point, and it's before I started recording, the whole wall kind of melted away. So we were inside and we were behind a wall, and the wall melted away, and the perspective that we were left with, it looked like we were looking out at the Las Vegas Strip. And then even cooler, which I have, it's a 6-minute video because that's the only video I took because I tried to stay in the moment. Then at the end of the video, the strip starts to deconstruct and do a time regression, and it starts to look like it did back in time, all the way back to when there was almost nothing there, and then it just becomes a desert. So it was a very cool thing that they were able to show us and immerse us in. And I just want to, because I've been talking about on Zoom at Noon, I've said several things about the sphere and everything, so I wanted to show you guys a little bit of it. And then it made me think about the perspectives. And can we bring up from the PowerPoint, there's a slide of an elephant. Can we bring up that slide? And so I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of imagining with me. And as you look at this slide of the elephant, I want you to imagine that there's two people that are at the head of the elephant and at the rear of the elephant. And I want you to further imagine that each of these people has a walkie-talkie and an assignment which is describe what they're looking at. And I want you to stretch your imagination one step further, and neither of these people have ever seen an elephant before. And so there's one person at the head of the elephant, one person at the tail of the elephant, both with a walkie-talkie, and they're trying, 1 foot away, and they're trying to describe what they're looking at and what they're experiencing. So can we go to the next slide? And so if you can imagine, they have two different perspectives, right? And the first person says, I'm seeing this really, really long thing. I don't know what it is. It could be a nose. It could be, but it's really long. It has two big things that are, I don't know, they look like they're made out of bone, maybe they're teeth. The other person says, no, 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 no. And the person in the earpiece keeps saying, you're looking at the same thing, you have to figure this out. The person at the rear says, you can see, says, well, there's this little tiny thing, it's a tail, it has a little bushy thing at the end. And I want you to stretch your imagination so that I don't have to play out the entire conversation between these two people who we both know are looking at an elephant, describing what they're seeing, and not getting to any place of commonality or any place of common understanding. And if we can go to the slide that is all the words, the other way, backwards. I think I'm out of order. That one. So now we're back to the sphere. So at some point in the show, if you look at the very bottom of the picture, you'll see the stage there. That's the stage at the bottom in the sphere there. And Bono and U2 put this up on the screens. Everything you know is wrong. And they left it up there for a long time because I was trying to stay present and not take any pictures or any videos. And they left it up there so long, and it started to make me think. And I was like, I'm going to get a picture of this. And so I took the picture. And that whole long tangential thing is about where we are for today's service, because this helped me get a topic for today. Everything you know is wrong. And I started thinking about, what does that mean? What are they trying to say? And now I'm going to go back a step to perspective. I'm not certain what Bono's perspective is on why he is saying this. I have no idea. I haven't talked to Bono. I called him. It didn't even ring, so I guess I don't even have the right number. But I don't know what his perspective is. I don't know why he's saying that everything you know is wrong. But I do know that I started thinking about, what do I know that's wrong? And it started to make me think about our last time together and some other times together, and I thought about the whole series on principles. And I remember when we did the fourth principle, and the fourth principle is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And so when we did the fourth principle together, I asked some questions, and I went back and watched that service that we did on the fourth principle, since we're going to talk a little bit about truth. And Sherry Keith made a comment during that service, and Sherry said that she didn't believe that there was any such thing as objective truth. She didn't think there was an objective truth. Every truth was subjective. And I just thought that was interesting. I only bring it back up because I thought it was worthy of being quoted. And so now I'm going to ask you to pull your imaginations back out of your pockets and put your imaginations back into full effect. And imagine that you have a piece of paper, okay? And can you pull up that picture of Pythagoras for me? There we go. So Pythagoras. Everybody knows who Pythagoras is, right? So on your imaginary piece of paper, I want you to jot down just a couple of few things that you know about Pythagoras from everything you've gone through in life. So just in your imaginary piece of paper, a couple few things that you know about Pythagoras. And if this was really good, we'd have the paper so we could go back and check your answers and make sure it was really written down, but we're going to have to trust one another and trust you here. So now, I'm going to take us to a short video from YouTube. The subject is Pythagoras, and then we're going to come back. But you got to remember what you wrote on your paper, so just hold on to those answers for me, what you know about Pythagoras.
Pythagoras did not discover the Pythagorean theorem. Without trigonometry, nothing is possible. There will be no architecture, no ocean exploration, no astronomy, no space travel, no science. Not your house, not your car, not your computer, in fact, no modern technology that you can think of. And Pythagorean theorem is the foundation of trigonometry. So, did Pythagoras first discover it? No, Pythagoras indeed brought this theorem to the Greeks. Key historian of Western philosophy Bertrand Russell describes it, the combination of mathematics and theology, which began with Pythagoras, characterized religious philosophy in Greece. Orphism before Pythagoras was analogous to Asiatic mystery religion. Otherwise, think about it. How could they build pyramids without trigonometry? And what about the ancient giant ponds in Indus Valley civilization? Pythagoras was a native of Samyosh, who disliked his own government and spent much of his time roving in the lands on the other side of the ocean, which included Egypt, Babylon, and eastern lands ahead. By the standards of his time, they were far richer in mathematics, chemistry, and philosophy. As he returned to the Greeks carrying all that knowledge, they believed him to be the Son of God. Pythagoras enjoyed this divine position and attempted to found a new religion, which included weird mandates such as prohibition of eating hearts of animals, picking up fallen stuffs, and looking in mirrors from beside the lights. And from there, his school propagated science and mathematics ahead, which led to the famous Greek rise of wisdom that laid the foundation to all the further Western developments. For more interesting facts and knowledge, subscribe to
I apologize for the cartoon video. Every other video I found was somewhere between 7 minutes and 23 minutes on Pythagoras that gave some of the information. But here's some things that they didn't include in this short video. He was, as they said, he was from Satos, but I don't know if you know this, but he spent 30 years, somewhere between 22 and 30 years studying in ancient Kemet. And not only did he study in ancient Kemet, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but there's something called the Great Mysteries that were in ancient, Kemet is the name for ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, the Great Mysteries was the name of the school that all of the priests congregated in. In our modern era, it would be much more akin to some of our secret societies or universities, but at the time it was a storehouse of knowledge and a storehouse of understanding. And Pythagoras spent between 22 and 30 years, and I say 22 and 30 years because something else unique to Pythagoras in that point in time is there's nothing written down about Pythagoras in history until 800 years after the time that he was supposed to exist. So with everything that he is attributed to and attributed for, he didn't write anything down, and none of that survived. But in addition to the 20 to 30 years that he spent studying in ancient Egypt in Kemet, he also spent another 15 years studying in other places, including India, before he came back to Greece. And when he got back to Greece, his knowledge was so far, as they said in the video, above that the people in the town where he settled, they began to worship him as a deity, it's recorded. And they thought that his powers were so great. And one of the requirements that Pythagoras had in order to speak to Pythagoras is you had to successfully achieve a vow of silence for 5 years in order to even ask him a question or speak in his presence. And so he had a lot of very extreme things. And the reason that we kind of have an indication that he did exist is that he was referenced by Plato and Aristotle. They didn't reference any of his mathematical, he was very into music. And that brings me to Plato and Aristotle because in my understanding and my journey in the truth and accuracy of my life is that all of modern knowledge stems from the Greeks, great Greek thinkers, Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and a lot of string of other Greek thinkers whose names I can't recount from memory. Plato himself is attributed some 12 different subjects of mastery in the sciences and mathematics and philosophy. And in fact, Plato himself spent 13 years studying in ancient Egypt. Plato, if you look into the history, was given a great amount of treasure from Alexander the Great to purchase textbooks from Egypt and to bring them back to Greece. And so what happened there is that there were translations of knowledge and information from out in other parts of the world that were brought back by people like Aristotle. So back to the imaginary assignment. Some of you wrote down that I believe that Pythagoras created the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. It helps you figure out the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle. The irony is that they say that this was created, invented, and developed by a man who learned it inside of a building that is a triangle in the Great Pyramid at Giza. And I bring that back to our eighth principle. And so in the state of Florida, right now, 2023, they're changing curriculums and changing the information that is given to people in an effort to change the way they think. And now we go back to the slide from Bono, everything you know is wrong. Well, in fact, if someone translates a piece of information from one language to their own and then claims to be the originator of that language, well, that's untrue. That takes us back to George Orwell. Everything we know is wrong. The Greeks, in fact, they didn't create or originate anything. And I said we were going to weave in a little bit of the eighth principle there. And the importance of that is an acute and accurate thinking and looking at history and trying to correct our compass so that we present the best and most viable selves to our families and our communities. One of the principles that are inherent in white supremacy is a belief that all wonderful, intellectual, proper things in the Western society originated from this one group of people that happened to be white. And the fact is that they learned that information, mastered it, and translated it and gave it to the world. Why is that important? That's important because I see this slide. I don't know if you guys could see because it was small. That was October 5th, so that was last month. That was unfortunately just 2 days before the events that happened in Jerusalem, right? And as a result of that, no connection in anything that I'm saying except for now, this week, I'm wondering what's going on in the world. I'm trying to stay more informed because I try to take a diet from a lot of news and things, but I want to know. And one of the things that I tuned into was Bill Maher, and I realized I don't think I've seen Bill Maher and his show for about 7 or 10 years, or thereabouts. And he was talking about some of the things in Israel, and then he was talking about some of the things here back at home in response to what's happening in Israel, and he started to talk about institutional racism. And I found it very interesting that Bill Maher was challenging whether or not institutional racism was a real thing. In fact, if I understand from my perspective what he was saying this week on his show was he was saying that institutional racism was an unreal thing and wasn't real. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to go into Pythagoras and the Greeks and the false general belief in Western culture that all sophisticated and philosophical thoughts originated with the Greeks is that is part of and embedded in to the systemic mindsets that have allowed the world to be one where George Orwell's quote can be so poignant and so appropriate as it is here in 2023. So back to the eighth principle. Again, here's my perspective, and it's always a joy when the children join. Welcome, hi guys. We have to be intellectually diligent in everything that we think we know, everything that we're paying attention to, and we have to be diligent to shift our perspectives in a way that makes our historical compasses more accurate. It's kind of the skill set that I had to use to help me uncover the truth about Santa. I didn't even contemplate what might happen when I said these things. Where do I go from here? It's a skill set. That's what I'm saying. It's a skill set. It's the same skill set that one will have to apply to really get to the truth about Greek intellectuals and what we consider to be modern thought. So in Florida, they're changing curriculums. Our centering thought from Orson Welles, knowing and speaking accurate truths are a form of rebellion and revolution. I challenge you to become more accurate in your understandings of the world and of history and the people that are here. That is our stand in a post-truth society. That's our way of embodying the eighth principle in our spiritual journeys. Through acute and accurate thinking, having a better perspective, a better understanding of things like Pythagoras, and a willing engagement in our hearts to engage the eighth principle. So that's my invitation to you guys today. I said it earlier before you guys got here, early happy Thanksgiving. Santa Claus is awesome. And now I'm going to invite Carol to come back up and lead us in our closing hymn, which is number 159, This Is My Song. So now please stand if you're comfortable, and we're going to sing number 159, This Is My Song.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands of far and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thy God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Now is the time for us to distinguish our chalice here at the UUFLB. And if you would want at home, I invite you to distinguish your prayers today. In the name of all that is holy. I did, okay. We'll do that again. Now is the time for us to extinguish the chalice at the UUFLB and within our homes. The chalice extinguishing words for today are from the UUA website and were written by Kent McCuzak. In the name of all that is holy, may the connections between us inspire and sustain us. May the flame of life within us and amongst us be a sacred reminder that we are all called to serve, to grow, and to love as we continue this journey of transformation. And now I invite you to form a circle, and as Carol leads us, we will sing our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with earth as our mother. We are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me. Have a nice day.